After my dad passed, my stepbrother Marcus and I had a brutal fight over the inheritance, with him claiming I wasn't real family. I left, but the pain of years of rejection and cruelty stayed with me. I uncovered Marcus's embezzlement and sued him, destroying his reputation. When my stepmom begged me to come back and save the family, I realized I didn't owe them anything. I stood in the dimly lit study, the air thick with tension, as the lawyer read out the will. My stepbrother, Marcus, stood across from me, his arms crossed and his jaw clenched. The room felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in as each word from the lawyer's mouth seemed to drive a deeper wedge between us. To my beloved daughter, Evelyn, I leave the majority of my estate, including the family home and the bulk of my assets, the lawyer announced, his voice steady but heavy with the weight of the moment. Marcus's face turned red, his fists tightening. "What?" he spat, his voice dripping with venom. "This is a joke, right? She's not even your real daughter." I flinched, his words cutting deeper than I expected. "Marcus, stop," I said, my voice trembling. "This isn't the time. Don't you dare tell me what to do," he shouted, stepping closer. "You've always been his favorite, always the golden child. But you're not even his blood. You don't deserve any of this." I felt tears welling up, but I refused to let them fall. "I love him just as much as you did," I said, my voice breaking. "This isn't about blood. It's about family." "Family," he sneered, his voice cold and cruel. "You were never family. You're just a stranger who walked in and took everything that was supposed to be mine." His words hit me like a slap. I stared at him, my heart pounding in my chest. "You're wrong," I whispered. "I try to be your sister. I try to make this work. But you've always hated me, haven't you?" Marcus didn't answer. He just glared at me, his eyes filled with a bitterness I couldn't understand. His mother, my stepmother, stood silently in the corner, her face unreadable. She didn't defend me. She didn't defend him. She just watched, as if this was exactly what she had expected. The lawyer cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "There's more to the will." "I don't care," Marcus shouted, cutting him off. He turned to me, his voice low and dangerous. "You think you've won, don't you? But this isn't over. I'll make sure you regret this." I took a step back, my heart racing. "Marcus, please," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Don't do this. Don't let this destroy us." But it was too late. The damage was done. Marcus stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind him. The sound echoed through the house, a final, deafening note to the end of whatever fragile relationship we had left. I stood there, alone, the weight of his words pressing down on me. My stepmother finally spoke, her voice cold and detached. "You should go," she said. "There's nothing left for you here." I looked at her, stunned. "You're taking his side?" She didn't answer. She just turned and walked away, leaving me standing there in the silence. That night, I packed my bags. The house that had once felt like home now felt like a prison, every corner filled with memories of a family that had never truly accepted me. As I walked out the door, I didn't look back. I couldn't. The fight had broken something inside me, something I wasn't sure I could ever fix. But one thing was clear, I was done with them. Done with the lies, the cruelty, the endless battle for a place in a family that never really wanted me. I got in my car and drove away, the tears finally streaming down my face. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was certain, I would never let them hurt me again. The days turned into weeks, and though I had physically left the estate behind, it haunted me in my dreams. Every night, I found myself back in that study, Marcus's voice ringing in my ears, his words cutting deeper than any knife. I woke up sweating, my heart racing, the echoes of his anger still fresh in my mind. During the day, I tried to keep busy. I rented a small apartment in the city, far enough from the estate to feel like a different world. I found a job at a local bookstore, the quiet hum of the place a soothing balm to my frayed nerves. But no matter how much I tried to distract myself, my thoughts always circled back to the past. It wasn't just the fight that lingered in my mind, it was everything that had led up to it. The years of tension, the unspoken grievances, the way Marcus had always looked at me like I was an intruder in his life. I couldn't help but wonder how things had gotten so bad, how we had gone from being strangers under the same roof to outright enemies. One evening, as I sat in my apartment with a cup of tea, I let myself remember. It started when I was 10 years old. My father had just married Marcus's mother, Margaret, and we had all moved into the estate together. At first, I was excited. I had always wanted a sibling, someone to share my life with. But Marcus made it clear from the beginning that he wanted nothing to do with me. He was 14 then, already taller than me, with a scowl that seemed permanently etched onto his face. He ignored me at the dinner table, rolled his eyes when I tried to talk to him, and made it clear that I was not welcome in his room or his life. I tried to win him over. I baked him cookies, left little notes on his desk, even offered to help him with his homework. But every gesture was met with cold indifference or outright hostility. "Stop trying so hard," my father said one day, noticing my frustration. "He'll come around eventually." But he never did. As the years went by, the tension between us only grew. Marcus resented me for being my father's favorite, for the way I seemed to effortlessly excel in school and in everything else I tried. He accused me of trying to steal his father's affection, of trying to replace him in the family. "You're not even his real daughter," he would say, his voice dripping with venom. "You're just some kid he felt sorry for." Those words hurt more than I ever let on. I had always known I was adopted, but it had never mattered to me. My father had loved me as his own, and that was all that mattered. But Marcus used it like a weapon, a way to remind me that I didn't belong. Margaret didn't help. She never outright said anything cruel, but her indifference spoke volumes. She never defended me, never tried to mediate between Marcus and me. It was as if she had already decided that I was the problem, the outsider who didn't belong. And then there was my father. He tried to be fair, to treat us equally, but it was clear that he and I had a special bond. We shared a love of books, of art, of quiet evenings by the fire. Marcus resented that bond, saw it as proof that I was the favorite. Looking back, I could see how it had all spiraled out of control. The jealousy, the resentment, the unspoken competition for my father's attention. It was a toxic mix, one that had been simmering for years until it finally boiled over. I sighed, setting down my tea. The memories were painful, but they were also clarifying. I could see now that the fight over the inheritance wasn't just about money or property. It was about everything that had come before. The years of tension, the unspoken grievances, the deep-seated belief that I didn't belong. But knowing that didn't make it hurt any less. If anything, it made it worse. Because it meant that no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, I would always be the outsider in my own family. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. The estate felt like a world away, but the scars it had left on me were still fresh. I didn't know if they would ever fully heal, but I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't let the past define me. I had to find a way to move forward, to build a life that was mine and mine alone. But first, I had to confront the truth about my family, about Marcus, and about myself. Because the past wasn't done with me yet, and I wasn't sure I was done with it either. The anger that had been simmering inside me since the day I left the estate finally boiled over. It wasn't just about the inheritance anymore. It was about everything. The years of being treated like an outsider, the cruel words, the way Marcus had looked at me like I was nothing. I couldn't let it go. I wouldn't. I spent weeks gathering information, digging through old files and records, anything that might give me leverage. I wasn't sure what I was looking for at first, but then I found it, evidence that Marcus had been embezzling money from the family business. At first, I couldn't believe it. Marcus had always been so careful, so calculated. But there was, right in front of me, transfers to offshore accounts, falsified invoices, a paper trail that led straight to him. I felt a surge of satisfaction as I stared at the documents. This was it. This was my chance to make him pay for everything he had done to me. I contacted a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Claire who specialized in cases like this. She listened carefully as I laid out everything I had found, her expression growing more serious with each passing minute. "This is big," she said finally. "If we can prove this, we can take him down. But it's not going to be easy. He's going to fight back." "Let him," I said, my voice cold. "I'm done playing nice." The lawsuit was filed within days, and the media frenzy that followed was everything I had hoped for and more. Headlines screamed about the scandal, about the wealthy stepbrother who had stolen from his own family. Reporters camped outside the estate, shouting questions at Marcus every time he stepped outside. I watched it all from distance, my heart cold but satisfied. Marcus had always acted like he was untouchable, like he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. Now, he was learning the hard way that he wasn't. He tried to reach out to me, of course, first through his lawyer, then through Margaret, and finally in a desperate late-night phone call. "Evelyn, please," he said, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. "You don't understand what you're doing. You're destroying everything." "I understand perfectly," I said, my voice steady. "You took everything from me. Now it's your turn to lose." "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice rising. You think you're winning, but you're just proving that you're no better than I am." I hung up without responding. His words stung, but I refused to let them shake me. This wasn't about being better than him. This was about justice. The court case dragged on for months, each day bringing new revelations and new scandals. Marcus tried to fight back, to discredit me, but the evidence was too strong. In the end, he had no choice but to settle. The terms were harsh. He was forced to return the stolen money, pay a hefty fine, and step down from his position in the family business. The media had a field day, painting him as the villain and me as the wronged heroine. But it didn't feel like a victory. Not really. As I sat in my apartment, staring at the settlement papers, I felt a strange emptiness. I had gotten what I wanted. Marcus had been humiliated, stripped of his power, forced to face the consequences of his actions. But it didn't fill the hole inside me. If anything, it made it worse. Because no matter what I did, no matter how much I hurt him, it wouldn't change the past. It wouldn't undo the years of pain and rejection, the feeling of never belonging. I had thought that revenge would make me feel better, that it would give me closure. But now I realized that closure wasn't something I could get from Marcus. It was something I had to find within myself. And I wasn't sure I was ready to do that. Not yet. The fallout from the lawsuit was swift and brutal. Marcus's reputation was in tatters, the family business was in shambles, and the estate, once a symbol of wealth and power, was now a crumbling reminder of everything they had lost. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I was done with them, that I had moved on, but when the first call came, I couldn't bring myself to ignore it. It was Margaret. Her voice was shaky, almost unrecognizable, as she begged me to meet her. "Please, Evelyn," she said. "We need to talk. We need your help." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to hang up, to block her number and never look back. But another part of me, a smaller, weaker part, was curious. What could she possibly have to say to me after everything that had happened? Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. We met at a small cafe in the city, far from the prying eyes of the media. Margaret looked older, her once impeccable appearance now frayed at the edges. Her hair was streaked with gray, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. She looked like a woman who had been through hell. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice trembling. "I know I don't deserve your time, but I didn't know who else to turn to." I didn't respond. I just sat there, waiting for her to continue. "Marcus, he's not doing well," she said, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "The lawsuit, the media, the loss of the business, it's destroyed him. He's not the same person he used to be." And I said, my voice cold, "What does that have to do with me?" Margaret flinched, but she didn't back down. "We need your help, Evelyn. The estate is falling apart. The business is on the verge of collapse. And Marcus, he can't handle it. He's not strong enough." I stared at her, my heart hardening with every word. "You're asking me for help? After everything you and Marcus did to me? After everything you said?" "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I know we were wrong. I know we hurt you. But we're family, Evelyn. And family forgives." "Family," I said, my voice rising. "You never treated me like family. Not you, not Marcus, not anyone. I was always the outsider, the intruder. And now, when things are falling apart, you suddenly remember that we're family." Margaret looked down, her hands trembling. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry for everything. I was wrong, Evelyn. We were wrong. But please don't let us lose everything. Don't let this be the end." I wanted to laugh, to scream, to walk out and never look back. But something in her voice stopped me. She sounded broken, defeated in a way I had never seen before. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice quieter now. "We need you to come back," she said, her eyes pleading. "We need your help to save the estate, to save the business. You're the only one who can do it." I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "You're unbelievable. You spend years treating me like I don't belong, and now you want me to come back and fix everything." "I know it's a lot to ask," she said, her voice trembling. "But please, Evelyn, we're begging you." I looked at her, at the woman who had never once defended me, who had always stood by while Marcus tore me down. And for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "I'll think about it," I said finally, standing up. "But don't call me again." I walked out of the cafe, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to say no, to leave them to their fate. But another part of me, a part one didn't want to acknowledge, wondered if this was my chance to finally prove that I belonged. But even as I thought it, I knew it wasn't that simple. Because no matter what I did, no matter how much I helped them, it wouldn't change the past. It wouldn't undo the years of pain and rejection. And I wasn't sure I was ready to forgive them. Not yet. I stood at the gates of the estate, the place I had once called home. The iron bars were rusted now, the once grand driveway overgrown with weeds. It looked like a ghost of its former self, a crumbling monument to a family that had fallen apart. I hadn't planned on coming back. After my meeting with Margaret, I had told myself I was done with them, that I would never set foot in this place again. But something had pulled me here, some lingering sense of obligation or curiosity that I couldn't quite shake. I pushed open the gates, the hinges creaking in protest, and walked up the driveway. The house loomed ahead of me, its windows dark and lifeless. It felt strange to be back, like stepping into a dream or a nightmare. Margaret was waiting for me on the porch, her face pale and drawn. She looked relieved to see me, but there was something else in her eyes too, something like guilt. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice trembling. "I wasn't sure you would." I didn't respond. I just followed her inside, the familiar halls feeling smaller and more oppressive than I remembered. Marcus was in the study, sitting in our father's old chair. He looked like a shadow of the man he used to be, his face gaunt, his eyes hollow. He didn't look up when I walked in, didn't say a word. "We need your help," Margaret said, her voice breaking the silence. "The estate, the business, it's all falling apart. We don't know what to do." I looked at her, then at Marcus, and felt a surge of anger. "You think I can fix this?" I said, my voice cold. "After everything you've done?" Margaret flinched, but Marcus finally looked up, his eyes burning with a mix of anger and desperation. "You've already won, Evelyn," he said, his voice hoarse. "Isn't that enough? Do you have to rub it in our faces?" "I didn't come here to rub it in," I said, my voice steady. "I came here to say goodbye." Margaret's face fell, and Marcus looked away, his jaw clenched. "You're leaving?" Margaret asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Already left," I said. "A long time ago. I just didn't realize it until now." I turned to go, but Margaret reached out, her hand trembling as she grabbed my arm. "Please," she said, her voice breaking. "Don't do this. We're family." I looked at her, at the woman who had never once treated me like family, and felt a surge of pity. "You're right," I said softly. "We are family, but that doesn't mean I have to stay." I pulled my arm away and walked out of the study, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear Margaret calling after me, her voice desperate, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I walked through the halls one last time, my footsteps echoing in the empty house. I paused at the front door, my hand on the knob, and took a deep breath. This was it, the final goodbye. I stepped outside, the cool air hitting my face, and closed the door behind me. The estate stood silent and still, a relic of a past I was finally ready to leave behind. I walked down the driveway, the gates creaking shut behind me, and didn't look back. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Free from the expectations, the judgments, the endless battle for acceptance. I had spent so much of my life trying to belong, trying to prove that I was worthy of family that had never truly wanted me. But now, I realized that I didn't need them. I didn't need their approval, their love, or their forgiveness. I just needed to be myself. And for the first time in my life, that was enough.